Hi, this is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times. This is season 3, episode 16. I want to thank the listeners from around the world and now in 19 countries to the podcast and to the ideas that we live in a miracle. And that thanks to my near death experience, the divine, the God, the goddess, the Muhammad, the Christ, the Abraham, the Brahma, the Buddha, whatever we look for, whatever we're searching for called God in my own simple mind, what I call the acorn brain. It's just easier for me. I found it in the moment, in the divine, that the now was on steroids when I left my body on November 18th, 2002, having been in intensive care at that point for 5 days in a hospital in Massachusetts. And little did I know it was going to be the beginning of a remarkable journey that I'm grateful for every day. An amazing journey. To be in the now is where the divine is. I'd like to read something from Ernest Holmes. And I quote, "This is a beautiful thought, that we are fed from the table of the universe, whose board is ever spread with blessedness and peace, whose loving kindness has never been fathomed, whose grace and truth are the cornerstone of reality." Ernest Holmes believed that God was all in all and that we were one with the all in all. And so to me, that is in alignment with what I experienced, that on the other side, in what I now call what's next, not death, was the now on steroids. And that it strengthened a faith. I did have a faith before that day, but it strengthened my faith. And faith is a funny thing, right? Most people believe what they see and not realizing that as spiritual beings, as divine beings, we have power and we're seeing what we believe. That's the difference. We're actually seeing what we believe. So faith is believing in what you cannot see. But faith in what you cannot see is almost everything, right? I mean, if you think of it, if we have faith in what we cannot see, we begin to live a different life. And if you take a moment, take a pause to realize the power you have, that means you're taking responsibility for the result. You're the cause. Life itself is feedback or the effect. And the acorn brain, that small-minded thinker, of course, would prefer that you stay in victim state because it gives you a story to tell, something to rail against. And that's a common human trait, to be angry with what is. I chuckle. I've mentioned it many times in this podcast. Eckhart Tolle likes to say some people think reality is nuts. And he goes on to say, when you fight life, life fights you. But no matter what's going on in the outer world, what we might call craziness or confusion or fear, we can rise above that. That's all the small-minded thinking. And we can do it because we're one with the divine. But we have to remember it here in our body. And when we leave our body for what's next, or what a lot of people call death, we move into the now and we immediately know our divine essence. We come to know our divine essence. Now, Socrates said, know thyself. And the thing about the acorn brain is it's egoic, and the real self becomes hidden in all the stories of the outer world. We begin to look for validation from things in the outer world, titles, possessions, homes you owned, books you wrote, power in a position. Maybe it's an elected position. And we don't have to look far to see how it's glorified in the newspapers, in all media. And it's a false sense of self because the true self would let go of everything in this world and live in the moment. Now, that's not to say that you wouldn't make a living, but you wouldn't work for money. You would work to honor your passion and to return to the world the gifts you came here with. Everyone has a talent or a strength, and it's to follow that passion. And you'd find the universe would actually give you a living. You'd never have to worry about it. All things would be taken care of. And you have to prove that to yourself. A good teacher for that would be Buckminster Fuller. Read and study what Buckminster said. And his wife supported him on the day that he woke up and said, you know what? I'm not going to work for a living anymore. I'm going to do what I love and test it, that the universe will provide for me. And it did. It truly did. In fact, sometimes Bucky Fuller, as his shorter version of his name is, Buckminster Fuller, would draw his checking account down to zero just to test the idea that the money only comes at the last moment. He said that. And so that's a trust, that's a faith. And that's what all of us can do. And as I've said, we have to prove it to ourselves. Don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. So I'll be quoting many of the sages from the past and even some people that are living today. The divine didn't stop giving us knowledge about how to live with 2,000 years ago or 3,000 or 4,000 with some of the divine writings, the holy books. That intuition continues to come today. And so I will go back many thousands of years. I've quoted Lao Tzu, and I'll find many of the other enlightened teachers and sages as I'm writing the book, Sage Advice. Wisdom from Throughout the Ages is going to be the subtitle. And so just to give people the idea that divine wisdom has been with us right up until now. It didn't end. It didn't stop. The divine actually is in the now. And yeah, religion is a wonderful thing. It gives people traditions, things to celebrate as families. And of course, religion also has been, my dog just came in. Religion also has been the thing that has caused wars and strife, and even some from the same religion fighting over a different sector or belief, right? You don't have to go far to look at the Sunnis and the Shias and the Protestants versus the Catholics. It's crazy. They all believed in the same thing. So we know there's craziness. As Albie is right next to me, agreeing, because he came in to show me his divine love, as animals do. And we don't have to look far for examples of divine love when we can overcome our small-minded acorn brain, that limited thinking, and expand into what models the all in all, as Ernest Holmes talks about, that we're one with the all in all. But it's a view that you have to teach yourself, or at least I do. I have to continue to work on myself, because the acorn brain is powerful. That small-minded thinker that we all have resides in my head anyway. But I can overcome it. And when I do, in the now, it's amazing. And the beauty about what's next, the day that I discovered that we don't die, I had that understanding before November 18th, 2002, and then I got proof, because I went from this to that in an instant. It was just in a body, in pain, in intensive care, not really struggling much with it. I had surrendered to it and was grateful for it, even getting in the ambulance. And still, that moment that I left my body, it was an immediate knowing I was one with everything and nothing, the infinite. And it's way beyond anything we can even imagine with our little acorn brains. Nothing from here is there. And it's funny how humans use the egoic, small-minded thinker and translate that, project it onto God, that God somehow thinks like we do, which is a belief in the egoic. It's a belief in that acorn brain. But don't take my word for it. Prove it to yourself that we are one with the all in all, and that is within us. And we can rise and overcome it and live a different life. So my job is me. That's the other thing I discovered, that other people's journey is none of my business. And as they're all as different as our fingerprints, and combined, if we were to work every day to leave everything and everyone a little better than we find them, the world would be a better place. We have more power than we think. And to model that, helping others win and helping others not be wrong. And what I mean by that is learning to let people have their belief and negotiate. Would you like to hear another point of view? Would you consider something different? And even our leaders today don't model healthy behavior because all they do is rail against whatever their opponent is in their mind. And it doesn't matter the party, and that's why I'm an independent today. I don't have a party because I think both sides are ridiculous, spending so much time modeling boorish behavior and then making society wrong when it mirrors their own behavior. They're getting feedback. That's the gift in life. When it doesn't work, you're just getting feedback. When you rail against someone who disagrees with you, you're getting feedback about how disagreeable you are. And that's the same for our leaders. We will wake up to it one day. We'll wake up to it one day. And mostly that's the day that we pass from this to what's next. It may not be the collective consciousness that ever gets to that level, but individually we can. And that's what I encourage you all to do. Prove to yourself that what awaits you is a miracle, and what awaits you in living in the moment is a miracle. And that you can do good. As I've talked about previously, the only thing mentioned in my life review was the lives I had touched, the good I had done, and that somehow that's etched onto the fabric of time. And to me, that's what an infinite thinker, an infinite life force, an infinite creator or creation that made this miracle that we live in, that's what our job is, to learn how to model that. Again, prove it to yourself. Don't take my word for it. If you'd like to be on the podcast, or if you'd like me to interview you for upcoming podcasts, email me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini.com. If you'd like to say that you've worked on yourself and worked on that small-minded thinker, I'd love to hear from you. That if you found that in your journey, it's made a difference for you over the last, I think this is going to be 3 years on the air pretty soon, sometime this year, let me know. Again, Steve, LEN, T as in Tom, INI.com. Thank you.